speaker there who claimed to have gotten death threats.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I 100% think it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an issue that needs to be dealt with. I think that people on the left need to understand, like, that's not every right person, and that's most people on the right. They're not going to be sending death threats. Mm-hmm. That's a very extremist thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can find a way to, like, bridge that gap and find the human in people again,
mm-hmm.
that's, I think, what we need to do.
I think it's a really good goal. And I'm glad that you're taking that perspective and writing on this. You know, the thing about, two things concern me about that. First of all, when they say that they've gotten death threats, I mean, that I want, that could be made up, and it'd be like, that's a pretty serious allegation. Did you call the police? Do you have a police case number on that? Was this followed up on? Well, what's the status of it? Otherwise, those remarks seem like they could be made up to play the victim card and say, well, look at us, we're getting death threats from these mean right-wingers, these transphobes, and it could be made up. I'm not saying that it is, I'm saying it could be. So, like, mm-hmm. the things that I've said, like the left has done to me, I called the police on it, and I can show you the case numbers and all this stuff, because it really happened. I'm not making that stuff up. And so, then along those lines, the second thing that has me concerned is that narrative that you're talking about. If they really believe that there's right-wingers that are waiting to genocide, gays or the trans community or whatever, they're gonna, and they believe that, whether it's true or not, and they believe that, they're gonna start being able to, in their minds, justify preemptive strikes against us to
mm-hmm.
defend themselves, because they really believe that the right wing is trying to genocide them. And it's like that, and like you said, that the emotional stuff just overrides and logic goes out the window. There's no reasoning with people that think that, because there's no evidence that that they're being genocided. It's unbelievable. It's the victim mentality. It really makes me sick.
And I completely agree with you. When you start going into that victim mentality and you start thinking that words are violence and that this is going to kill me if you don't allow me to transition before I turn 18 and all of this stuff, like, all of a sudden, that's you're stripping away their humanity, according to them.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at it from their perspective, it's it's a dangerous spot to be in, to think, and so it's just a matter of trying to talk to people and opening up people's views to other perspectives, and understanding that you're not there to take away their life. You're just there to protect kids
mm-hmm.
from what could potentially be a horrible thing that ruins their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think that they, and we'll get into the article here in a second, but do you think that are they literally meaning genocide, or are they saying, like, when they talk about, like, trans erasure, like you were just talking about there, about how taking away their identity and removing them from society, or are they talking about actually being lined up and killed?
I don't think that I don't think that they're necessarily talking about being lined up and killed. I think that, and this is something that has been really interesting with both sides, is that each side has buzzwords that they like to use to draw a lot of emotional energy out in people. And if you just stop and ask them to, like, define, like, what they mean, they can't do that. Like, they can't do that effectively in, 30 seconds.
Right.
Like, and if you can't define something effectively in 30 seconds, do you really know what you're talking about?
Right.
Like, and I think that's something that has happened on both sides, and specifically when we talk about the trans stuff, I think that they are thinking that, well, okay, if you're taking away my ability to play in sports with women, if you were like, or making it so that that female must be defined this way, you're erasing my identity, and therefore you are erasing me as a human being. And that it's like, but like, what does that mean? Can you explain that to me?
Right. It means they're being really dramatic, is what it means. When I hear that, it's like, yeah, take it easy there. Being really dramatic. I get what you're saying. That's exactly what they say, but it's really dramatic. It's like that's not what's happening.
Yeah. And but I mean, like, try to tell them that.
Exactly.
So, and when you talk about like transitioning, like, and wanting to just keep it until it's 18, I think it's actually the bill here for Kansas is 21, I think is the age, which, you know, I'm fine with that personally. But, you know, there was a 13-year-old with my name, by the way,
Oh, yeah?
who made like national news, I believe, for being transgender, queer, and just being absolutely enraged that, you know, he can't transition, or like, and just this whole narrative that like if you don't allow trans kids to transition, they're going to commit suicide. Like, and that's like the
boom, boom, A to B. There's no other thing in there.
And that's been the big thing that they've used for parents is like okay, so like you don't want a trans son, so do you want a dead daughter? That's like kind of the thing that they've been using to tell parents, like, to get them to transition their children.
That's that emotional appeal and emotional manipulation that you're talking about that they're really good at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That we could take a lesson on if we wanted to go down that route, you know, or the right. When I say
I
mean
mean
the right.
I'd prefer if we like actually stuck to logic, but yeah, I understand.
Well, yeah, but at some point, you know, we gotta realize that, you know, I think a lot of the apathy on the right is they don't recognize the seriousness of it, and of the situation until they do, you know, all options aren't going to be on the table. You know, it's just going to be more of the same, the boring tactics and stuff like that, and we'll lose the culture war.
And yeah, and that's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so getting back in the article here, so you start off with the differences. In the first section you have here, it says how they start. And so rallies that are more geared toward the right will always start with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Some will go a step further and have someone sing the national anthem. This is something I've never seen done at a rally geared toward the left. Instead, they typically just start by simply introducing the first speaker. So what do you make of that? What kind of implications do you see there? Or what does that tell you about each side?
So, I mean, I think that just shows that one side has their faith in God and, you know, leads with Jesus and leads with God first,
Mm-hmm.
And that they are very connected to the U.S. and are proud to be Americans. And the other side, they tend to be more inclusive, and so like a prayer would be outside of that because not everybody is going to be, you know, religious, and so like we're not going to start with that. And then also, you know, there are going to be people who a big thing on the left is the idea that America is racist and that we shouldn't be proud of our country.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to start with, you know, the Pledge of Allegiance. There may be an American flag there. I believe there may have been one at the marijuana rally. Can't remember exactly if there was, but it was inside the Capitol as well, so that probably was why it had a flag there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the most part, they're just gonna get right into business.
Mm-hmm.
And
so out of fear of like not insulting someone that's not religious or something, they just skip the prayers altogether. Because
I think that is less important to them. Not that they are all against God. I think that, you know, you do find people that at left-leaning rallies who do believe in God and who do go to church, and but a lot of those churches, like when you talk to them, they're, in my opinion, they're not really interested in worshiping God. They're interested in worshiping race. They're interested in worshiping sexuality. They're interested in worshiping gender,
mm-hmm.
and that's what they worship. And you can't have God on a pedestal and all these other things.
Right.
So I think they think that they're worshiping God, but like when you really listen to how they speak and what they're saying, God is not on the pedestal.
Right.
It's those things that they virtue signal with.
Right. Yeah. So they're godless heathens, and they like to attack us for religious beliefs, but at the same time they don't recognize that they have their own religious beliefs. Those idols that they put up on the pedestal is the same thing. They listen, like you were just saying that earlier, that they listen to whoever's in front of them, the authority figure. It's the same thing as a religion, but they don't see it that way. They couch it in more as like they're so much smarter than the religious people that they could never fall for something like that, but yet they are.
Yeah, definitely, like, when you look at how wokeness has come, like, where it's gone, it definitely does come off as a religion, for sure. So,
and they don't even recognize that. That's the interesting thing about it. That, like, they're so evolved and so much smarter that they're above that, and they don't even see that they're doing that.
I see a lot of similarities with wokeness that I see with early 2000s Christianity, honestly.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah.
Can you say more on that?
Yeah, so, like, when I was growing up as a young gay man in small town America, you were not allowed to question things when it came to being in church. You had to just follow along with, like, what was being said, what was being preached. And there was this idea that you love everyone and you don't judge anyone, but then again, like, as a gay man, and, like, there were some people who really, like, didn't who were really good about, being respectful to me as a human being, but there was definitely